Hello to anyone who might see this. Welcome to today's video that is going to be on a topic that is a bit more sensitive because it's on how to stop overeating. So I'm going to mention disordered relationships with food, etc. So please make sure that you're okay with that before continuing this video. And I would also like to make another little disclaimer here. This video is only directed towards people who really struggle with eating way more than their bodies need, people who struggle with binge eating, who just for whatever reason really eat too much. I am not talking to people who already eat normal, healthy portions of food but try to eat less because they want to lose weight faster or things like that. I do not promote unhealthy weight loss. I don't want to partake in this whole diet culture, skinny culture. I don't want to be associated with any of that. So please, if that is your goal, then leave this video. It's not for you. I am only talking to people who really eat too much. I talk about overeating and how to stop overeating, but it's just as important to not undereat, and it's just as important to eat enough food, and it's just important to learn what works for you, what portions work for you, what amount of food that you eat daily works for you, as long as it's healthy, as long as you eat enough. And you should just avoid going from one extreme to the other and just find the perfect amount in the middle that works for you. So first, it is, before anything, a mental health issue. It's a psychological problem. It all starts in your mind. So please focus on that before anything else, to find why it happens, what causes you to do that, and see a therapist. That would be the best thing to do. If you can't afford seeing a therapist, then try to learn about these things on your own. In whatever way you can, really work on that, because it all comes from there, and that's the most important thing. So some reasons that this problem may stem from are, for example, emotional regulation. I think it's the most frequent reason of why people overeat, from what I've heard and from what I've experienced. People use food to self-regulate. When they're sad, when they're angry, when they're tired, when they're unhappy for whatever reason, they will overeat to make up for these emotions, to fill that void that they feel inside of them. But obviously it's a very unhealthy way to manage your emotions, so you should try finding other ways to self-regulate and to put these emotions out there, but in a good way. Maybe try doing sports, maybe try journaling, maybe try making art, being creative about it, just expressing your emotions in the way that suits you. Try talking to a therapist, as I said, try talking to a friend. Really try to voice it out and express what's going on in one way or another. Then it also may be a cultural thing. The way you were brought up influenced your relationship with food today. I mean, cultural or like a family thing or things like that. Really, all the things that influenced the way you learned to relate to food when you were a child, whether it's your country, your culture, your family, your environment in general. That's what shaped you in every area of your life, and that includes your relationship with food. So try to analyze what was the relationship with food that you learned in your environment when you were a child, because that most likely influenced it. So for example, if you grew up poor and you were taught that food is extremely valuable and can't be wasted and you have to eat all the food you have on the table, all the food on your plate, even though you're not hungry anymore because you can't throw it out, then maybe that's why even when you're full, you can't stop eating. And obviously it's a great thing to be taught not to waste food. It's very important, especially nowadays with the environmental crisis, all the food that goes into waste in the world, it's just awful. So obviously we need to work on it. We need to make sure that we don't waste food as much as possible. But it doesn't mean that it allows you to treat your body as a trash can, literally, because that's what happens when you know you have too much food that you won't eat later and that you can't eat anymore and you want to throw it out, but you tell yourself, no, I can't do that because I can't waste it, I'm just going to force myself to eat it. Then you're literally still throwing it out, but you're throwing it out into your body. You're disrespecting your own body and treating it like garbage. So instead, try to organize better, try to plan your meals for the week, try to plan your groceries in a better way. Avoid having too much food in front of you in the first place. So that way you don't overeat and you don't throw this food out. And also, instead of throwing it out, maybe try just putting it in a container for later. Just put it in your fridge. And for me, what was difficult was often telling myself like, oh, there's so little food left on the plate, so it doesn't make any sense to leave it for later because it won't make a whole meal. It doesn't make sense. I will still be hungry when I eat it the next time. Why would I keep it? But also I don't want to throw it out because I don't want to waste it. So I just forced myself to still eat it. And my therapist told me to still put that food away in the fridge for later, even if it's just a small amount of food. And the next time I eat it, if I'm still hungry after that, I can just eat something else with it. And it sounds so simple like that, but it was so eye-opening for me because I just hadn't thought of that, even though it's so obvious. But yeah. Then she also told me that overeating might also be a way of expressing your freedom. For example, if you live in a household where you can't be yourself, you can't express yourself, you don't have any freedom, if you have very controlling parents or things like that, then if the only thing you can control is what and how you eat, then you're at risk of overeating because that's your only way of having your freedom. And in that situation, obviously the best solution is to leave that toxic environment as soon as you can. But I know that very often it's not that easy. If you're very young, you don't have any money, you have nowhere to go to, and I know it's very hard. But as soon as you have the possibility to do so, try to leave and live on your own. And in the meantime, while you're waiting for the day that you can do it, try, like I said, to manage it in a different way, in a way that is healthier for you. Just like with regulating your emotions, try to manage that need for freedom in a different way. Maybe try going out more, seeing other people more, try to have hobbies that you can do outside. Once again, try to express yourself maybe in a more creative way, like writing, drawing, painting, I don't know, whatever you like, whatever makes you really feel like yourself and make you feel free, even if it's just a small thing in the day, try to do it. So with all that I've said, the best way to stop overeating in general is just to occupy yourself as much as possible. Because when you occupy yourself, then you literally don't have the time to think about food, to be snacking all day. Often people who struggle with overeating have this unhealthy obsession over food. in general. And when you occupy yourself, then you don't have the time to obsess over food, because you shouldn't. It's not something that you should be obsessed with when you have a healthy relationship with food, because it's not something that you should be thinking of incessantly. So, as I already said, try going to therapy. If you can't, then try having hobbies, passions, exercising, doing sports, going on walks, going out with friends, reading, studying, working. I don't know, there are so many things that you can do in a day that doesn't require you to eat and to be thinking about food. Try finding things that you enjoy, that make you feel good, things that occupy your mind, body, and spirit in a healthy way. Then another tip I have is to try eating on smaller plates, using smaller plates, and try having smaller portions, because that way it helps you to not overeat. And then if you feel that you haven't eaten enough, you're still hungry after you've finished your first plate, then you can also just put some more food and eat a bit more. But that way you don't start your meal with just having a giant bowl of food, because when you have that in front of you, then you're most likely to finish it all at once, and then you realize that you've eaten too much and you didn't need that much. Then find what works for you. Maybe you should limit yourself to just 2-3 times per day that you eat, if your problem is that you overeat because of all the snacks that you have throughout the day. And then on the contrary, if your problem is that you eat too much at once, then maybe try eating smaller portions but more times during the day. So maybe 5 times that you eat during the day, but just with smaller amounts of food. The most important thing is to always listen to your body and what works for you, and also what works with your schedule, with what you do in the day, when you have the time to eat, how you eat, etc. And speaking of listening to your body, that's why it's also so important to eat slowly and with no distractions. I know that it's hard because we all have a shorter attention span because of TikTok and all these things nowadays, and we need constant dopamine, we need constant distractions, and it's so hard to just sit at the table and be present with your food and eat without going on your phone, without watching a YouTube video, without watching Netflix. I know how hard it is, but really try to learn to do it. Maybe at first start with just one meal in the day that you eat completely without distractions, where you focus only on your food. And then, for example, after a week, you increase that, and maybe twice a day you will eat without any distractions, and you just try to get used to it as much as you can. And then one day you'll be able to always just eat and not do anything else at the same time. And so many people talk about that lately, but it is truly so important, because that way you can actually listen to your body and listen to the signals of when you're hungry, when you're full, and that way you can really know when to stop eating, because your body is sending you a signal that it's full and it doesn't need any more food. Another thing is to try to take care of your sleep routine. Really try to sleep well at night, because on the days where you don't get enough sleep and you're tired, that's where your body demands more food, because it has to make up somehow for this lack of energy you have. And that's how you're more likely to overeat. One day I will also make a video on that, on how to sleep well. So you can let me know in the comments if you're interested in that. But yes, really try to sleep well, to have enough energy so that you don't have to compensate for it with food. Another thing that helps me is to always have a drink, something to drink when I eat, and preferably warm liquids, so some tea or warm water, because it gives you a sensation of filling you up so that you feel the need to eat a bit less than you would usually do. And it's also something that helps with your digestion in case if you do overeat, because that's when you need the most help with your digestion, because I know how terrible of a feeling that is when you overeat and you have a stomach ache and you feel so bloated and you feel like you're going to explode. I know how horrible it is. So that's why it's so important to take care of your digestion. I mean, always, but especially in the periods of time where you overeat. And also try eating better in terms of nutrition. So get enough protein, enough fiber, enough healthy fats. Try cutting out sugar as much as possible. I know it's hard, but just try to limit it as much as you can, because that way you're full faster and you get less cravings throughout the day, because thanks to that you stay full for longer. You don't have to eat as often in the day. It's so much better to eat smaller amounts of food, but eating food that is better for you and healthier, more nutritious, quality over quantity as always. So that's it. These were my tips on how to stop overeating. I hope it was helpful, and please remember to be kind and gentle and patient with yourself, because it is a problem that unfortunately won't go overnight, and it's a process, and it's completely okay to be struggling as long as you're trying to make efforts to get better. You can be so proud of yourself. And even for me, even still today, even though I've learned to overcome it and my relationship with food has gotten so much better lately, but I still have days when I overeat or I don't eat as healthily as I would like to, but it's okay, it's fine and normal not to be perfect, and a slow progress is so much better than instant perfection, because it won't last anyway. So as long as you're still making progress, then you can really be proud of yourself. So yes, thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.